is the appropriate name for that? Where all the ships will come down in like secluded locations for groups.
So we are referring to not open contact with your civilization, not for the great unveiling of our beings to your whole civilization, but this idea we talked of previously with synchronous landings occurring at multiple vortex and ley line energy centers across your world for the purpose of harmonizing the grid energy vortex system, yes?
Yes, yes. That's what we want to go into a little bit today. We're wondering, can you share with us the locations where currently it's expected that these, whatever we're going to call it, harmonizing landings will happen?
No.
No?
No.
No, why not?
Well, for various reasons. One, it's down to synchronicity, but also there are beings on your world that do not wish this to occur and may interfere with the process if it was unveiled ahead of time. Yes?
Okay, yeah. Okay, we understand that.
We don't really want to be landing to an entourage of 1,000 machine guns, military jets and tanks.
And we don't want you to. So, well then, could we talk about not the locations, but what it will be like? Because there's another Yahyel channel, Sean Swanson. I read in his book, it talked briefly about the group contacts, and it said something along the lines of those who are supposed to be there when this occurs will have been prepared inwardly and will know that this is going to happen and will just be drawn to these locations at this time. And he described the event as being this incredibly loving, joyous occasion and reunion. Can you talk about that?
Well, he pretty much hit the nail on the head. What more is there to say? Except for we agree wholeheartedly.
So this will probably be with involving our ET counterparts, just like the individual contacts?
Yes, this is according to the laws of synchronicity, the law of attraction, the law of vibrational resonance. For the idea is that those beings, for this is an idea of resonance, yes? Resonating towards synchronistic occurrences that are part of your resonant expression. For you understand the idea that all is resonance, yes?
Yes.
And you understand the idea that the more you raise your frequency, the more you resonate with what is more like for like resonant to your own vibration, yes?
Yes.
And so you understand that what is more like to like resonant to your vibration is those aspects of your own soul matrix makeup, yes?
Yeah.
So you see how this is all resonance, yes? Like tuning forks coming together and harmonizing at the same frequency. Tuning forks of a very similar vibration, a very similar notes. And there are no extraterrestrials more similar to your own notes, your own key, your own pitch, your own frequency than your own soul matrix galactic extraterrestrial counterpart.
So these other ET counterparts, they're just aspects of the same soul.
Yes, this is the idea of the term the counterpart. The term counterpart, keyed by the entity Bashar, channeled through Dal Anka, is the idea of a being that is of your soul. So yes, this is specifically what the term counterpart points to.
And so when these contacts happen, what exactly will take place?
Well, there will be a blending, a harmonizing of frequencies. Your frequency will become a closer match to your counterpart's frequency, and your counterpart's frequency will become a closer match to your frequency. You will, in a sense, be creating a new reality, more resonant to both your frequencies. Your frequency will go up, and in a sense, your counterpart's frequency will, perhaps, at least temporarily for the duration of the contact, lower slightly. Although it will occur within the counterpart's frequency, a kind of rebound action that will actually take the counterpart higher. And this is part of what the channel is, Jonathan Xenoplex has been experiencing, the idea that after his own counterpart contact experience, myself, Yahyel Ray, experienced a dip in frequency, which then caused a acceleration in frequency after the contact experience. And this was somewhat unaccounted for in a sense, although we did expect this, of course, but this is what caused the discordant and the trauma and the rebound shock within Xenoplex, within Jonathan. For it wasn't so much he wasn't ready for our current frequency, but our frequency took a rebound effect. It's the harmonizing of our energies caused both our energies to go up, and because Xenoplex Jonathan was tuned into our frequency, it took him even higher and was a bit of a shock to his central nervous system.
So at this point of contact, when this is happening, will the humans be going on to the ships during this phase of contact?
Yes. Initially, yes, it will be humans on ships as opposed to counterparts onto Earth.
Will they be traveling anywhere or just kind of staying in one area then coming back down?
Well, it depends on the purpose of the individual contact, of course, but likely there will be a movement of the ship's locale, for it is not too safe for our ships to hover in physical form for too long in any one place on your Earth. I'm sure you understand.
So when Jonathan had his individual contact, did the ship move somewhere?
Yes.
Where did it go?
It went up into the high stratosphere.
Oh, cool. Okay, anything else? Should I go into the multiverse? Okay, we have a couple questions about the multiverse and our reality, I guess, which consists of infinite, parallel timelines. We're wondering if you would talk about how that works.
Could you be more specific?
Yeah, okay, so there's individual contact and then there's collective contact. Is that represented between two different timelines, parallel timelines? Because if I wanted to go into a reality of contact, but then the collective isn't ready, so does that mean you have to sort of exit the collective timeline and go into an individual one in order to be able to achieve that now? Because it's a collective consensus and everyone would have to agree on that timeline in order to have that?
Well, it depends on the terminology and the definition of what you would call timeline and parallel reality, but the way we would describe it is you would not have to shift to a different timeline. Our definition of timeline would be, so the idea is that there are infinite parallel realities all existing here too now, yes? So infinite parallel perspectives. And the idea is that each parallel reality is in a sense like a still frame, like a photograph, like a still frame within a movie slide. Like the idea, this is one parallel reality, this is another parallel reality, this is another parallel reality. Now we actually went through millions, billions of parallel realities in that movement, but just imagine we went through 3 parallel realities. 3 parallel realities. The idea is that infinite consciousness exists of every possible reality that is in a kind of still frame. And that you create the illusion of time by moving through lots of these still frame parallel realities, or outside of the time-space reality you exist in the higher dimensions. What occurs is there is the apparent movement through dimensions, through realities, through experiences of creation. But what is happening, you are shifting from one parallel reality to parallel reality to parallel reality. So the idea is, what you explained, you would have to create your own parallel reality in the moment, separate from the collective parallel reality, although not really separate, but in a sense you would have to tune out of the collective paradigm somewhat, because most of the beings on your planet do not yet exist within this idea of a fourth density, non-physical, multidimensional reality where you can create such experiences. But the idea is that the timeline is the progression through these infinite parallel realities. So one timeline would be this, and that would be 3 parallel realities, where you could possibly create another time which would be this, which would be 3 parallel realities, but you would have shifted to a different timeline. Does this make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So the idea is that by shifting to a parallel reality that might be, in a sense, a kind of bubble reality, separate from what the collective is experiencing, or not really separate, because on some level it is still part of the collective experience. Because everything you experience is part of the collective experience, because you are all connected to the collective conscious of Gaia, of Earth at this time. But the idea is that as you create your own, in a sense, bubble reality, but not really bubble reality, but a reality that is not part of the paradigm of many human experiences consciously, although it will become it subconsciously or on a higher conscious level as you experience it. It will connect into some level of their entity, so not really a bubble reality, but the idea of a kind of conscious bubble reality. When you create this reality, you are shifting your timeline to a timeline that will be more accelerative towards open collective contact. So it's not that you're creating a different timeline, but you're creating a different parallel reality that is leading to a new timeline. Is this making sense?
Oh yeah, perfect sense. So people who are having the individual contacts now, this is, in a sense, what they're doing?
Yes. And this is why, to clarify an example of what we are talking of, this is why the contact experiences tend to happen in secluded forests, in the high deserts, top of mountains, as opposed to Times Square, New York, because it is not part of the collective, therefore it cannot happen in those areas. Or if it did, much of the collective would not even perceive it.
So is there then a parallel timeline or a splinter reality where the collective contact is actually happening right now?
Yes, of course, on some level, because we live in an infinite reality, yes.
So then what does that look like?
Pretty chaotic in the version that springs to mind, because understand, while there are infinite parallel realities, in a sense, in the way that there are infinite versions of you, but this experience has collapsed down into the idea of an oversoul and a soul with many versions of you more relevant to this experience. And there is the idea that in this reality that we perceive, while ultimately there must be infinite versions of Earth, because we live in an infinite reality, yes? There is a kind of soul matrix of Earths that's a kind of planetary oversoul, where there are many versions of Gaia, all experiencing perhaps millions of versions of Gaia, as opposed to infinite versions of Gaia, that are more relevant for this exploration according to our co-creative theme at this time. So while on some level there must be infinite versions of this Earth, there are, in a sense, millions of Earths that are more relevant to this vibratory experience we are experiencing now that can be more experientially valuable, more holding validity, holding purpose, holding reason for manifesting in this kind of Gaia Earth plane oversoul existence. So what we sense into is more millions of versions of Earth rather than infinite, because the idea of infinite is a bit out of our experiential reality, because it's not so relevant for us to experience. Because if we all had infinite souls and infinite counterparts and infinite versions of Earth, it would cause us more to merge into a kind of infinite perspective where it was hard to focus down into a physical reality and have any physical experience. So in our experience, there are more like millions of parallel versions of Earth that are more relevant to this reality, on which some of those open contact has occurred, on which the ones within that matrix of millions of Earth, the ones more relevant to this reality, the ones that come into our view, that hold relevance, that hold story, that hold structure, that holds significance to our experience in this moment, in this reality. Rather than creating a reality, tapping into infinite parallel versions of reality that not really hold any relevance to this experience. Everything serves a purpose, you understand, and sort of tapping into these infinite potentials is not so relevant for this co-created vibrational experience. So we have, in a sense, a smaller array, millions, and within that hundreds of thousands, and within that thousands of parallel reality Earths that are more relevant to this experience, which we are more readily able to tap into visually, vibrationally, energetically. Does this make sense?
Yeah, so we could almost say that by putting off the contact for some more years, we're actually choosing a more valuable timeline than if it were to happen now and create chaos.
Yes, yes. Some of these experimental parallel realities where open contact has occurred, well, it's all exciting, but it has been quite chaotic in the ones that come to mind. It has caused much upheaval. It was sensed in these realities that it was worthwhile experimenting because these parallel realities were descending into chaos anyway, and in a sense they were more perhaps negatively oriented, but slightly more, not negatively oriented, but slightly more chaotic expressions of Gaia. And the way they were expanding was more tumultuous, more wavy, more polarized. And the sense was that open contact at this time would probably be no more chaotic than what was going to occur anyway. So it was experimented with. Does this make sense?
So as we move forward and accelerate and then become more attuned to these simultaneous parallel timelines, are we going to start to have like sort of bleed through into our extraterrestrial counterparts and feel like seeing through their eyes and like a merging of these realities all into one?
In a sense, over time, to some degree, but not to the degree, not to a total merging into one in any near future. Unlikely within this incarnation that you would fully experience yourself as all entities simultaneously, although experientially possible for short moments of time for specific reasons.
We had a visit from what appeared to be our future selves in a parallel timeline. they came on a spaceship and their bodies were fully rejuvenated. So was this sort of a bleed through or a peek into a potential timeline for us?
Sorry, can you restate the beginning of your question?
We had a visit from what appeared to be our future selves in a parallel timeline, and they came to visit us on a spaceship and had these fully rejuvenated physical bodies, sort of like new Earth, extended, ascended versions of ourselves. So, was this sort of like a peek into a future version of ourselves that was then bleeding through into our current reality?
There was a message in here for you, a vibrational resonance, a specific reason for tapping into these aspects of yourselves. And yes, as they were future versions of yourselves, as you know it, but also from another parallel timeline where first contact occurred sooner than this timeline, where your Earth went through a more tumultuous past and first contact was accelerated due to these reasons. And while it was not so pleasant going through these tumultuous stages, it caused you to go through a faster acceleration into your higher density selves. And there is specific reason for this contact occurring, this sharing of vibrations, because you can assist each other. They can learn from you and you can learn from them.